on this on our screens, so that those exactly. So, Comrade Eben, first, Ambazonians mobilized to try to fix up a house, the House Resolution 358. We work so hard around the globe to make sure that some adjustments should come into that House Resolution. You're actually here to talk about another now a Senate resolution that is ongoing. But give us a flashback on what House Resolution 358 was and why, so that you can now move us into this Senate.
Thank you very much again, my brother. So typically, the U.S. legal political system sets legal basis for their actions internationally. And in the context of conflict, whether it's Iraq or in the context of our case, Ambazonia, or it's South African conflict, like when they sanctioned South Africa, in the context of this kind of conflicts, they have a three-step process. Typically, Congress would pass a resolution calling the parties or maybe the country that is committing the crime to stop and to respect the law. And that would be a basis which then they will pass another bill on top of that, that will be to condemn the action if the country does not respond, so that people cannot say, well, that was too quick a response, you didn't give them time to respond to your request for them, your call for them to stop. So there's a call, there's a condemnation. When there's a condemnation, it's like, okay, we've called, you haven't replied, we've condemned, which is kind of an obligation, because if you condemn something, that means there's something wrong, then you have an obligation to try to fix that thing. And then typically that is followed by sanctions. So, and we know that the United States, being the biggest political and economical power in the world, it has a lot of influence, whether at the level of, how the countries index your economy, or how much money the World Bank can give you, because it's the highest donor of World Bank and IMF, or how much the UN can sanction you. So what has happened is that Resolution 358, which passed through the House, initially was supposed to be a call. That side was written, but to make it a call, there had to be some justification inside why it's not just something heavier. So it said things like, the Cameroon government has killed women and children, Ambazonians also have, right? The reason is because the killing of women and children has a particular status, and if somebody is killing women and children and nobody else is doing that, then you have to take a position legally. You can't just say somebody has killed women and children and move on. And so what we did in that campaign, we said, listen, our people have never killed women and children. You don't have any evidence for it. If you have evidence, show us. But if you don't show us and you put this in the bill, right, if you're a congressional staff and you are the one responsible for that, what you're essentially doing is you're making the congressperson to lie. And that would be a big problem, not only for them, for their career, but also for you as a staff. So once we started raising all this issue up, clearly the Congress staff freaked out, right? Who are these people who are calling us out? And we didn't just, typically when you go complain about a bill, they'll be like, okay, we'll look at it. We took the bill and we made the corrections inside the bill. So you can't tell us that you look at it and tell us that you forgot or you don't remember what we said. We give you a copy of the corrected bill. We did that campaign. It was mostly electronic, but a lot of phone calls as well, and the bill changed. The bill did not only change by the removal of the part that says people have killed women and children, but the bill drastically changed to the point where it became immediately a condemnation bill. So when you look at it in the U.S. Congress, it says we condemn Cameroon for the abuses they are committing in what they call the Anglophone region. But that is on the record. And in the United States right now, the behavior of the government is the federal government is interpreting laws that have been passed before. And now there's this new law, which means that it has to start framing the way the federal government will behave towards this particular conflict. And so what we're trying to do now, typically after 3 years of this conflict, we have only one document that's an officially part of the U.S. law. So the other document that we have right now is the Senate bill. And the Senate bill, it's way better than the House bill, I think, because people saw the way we fought for it. But still, it has a few quirks. And also, it could be better because the Senate is responsible for foreign policy, right? As compared to the House, which controls the purse. Of course, you can use purse to control foreign policy. You can say, I'm not giving any money for this perverse regime. So what we're trying to do now is to make sure that this bill passes the Senate. Because if this bill does not pass the Senate in December, all the bills that are in the books will be dropped in the trash can, and that will be it. That means that there will be only one record of the U.S. government taking a stand against what is happening, and only one part of the Congress. We want the whole Congress, that is the House and the Senate, to have a position so that by whatever happens, there are a couple of things that are down the pike that we must follow and pay attention. So right now, November, South Africa is going to be the president, Britain is going to be the president of the Security Council, which means that Britain can do a lot of things But then in December, the United States is going to be the presidency of the Security Council. If we want the United States to ask for sanctions or to impose that Cameroon be put on the agenda of the Security Council as a permanent item, which immediately, if they put you as a permanent item, your index, economic index, goes down automatically because you are now a risk zone for investors. So there are all kinds of implications. The point is that this country, this Cameroon that is fighting us, is a giant as compared to us. The way to kill a giant is to bleed them to death. It's not by trying to go into head-on-head with them. And our people have done the foot part and done all the big part on the ground. And this bill is intended. Once we're hoping that we can get this bill passed. We're going to be what we're doing this time for this bill is extra, what we've not done before. What is called an advocacy day. It's going to be the first Ambazonia Advocacy Day. Advocacy days are involved in everything that has ever passed in the US in terms of part of the way to get our policy to change. So we're trying to fix and pass this new resolution, and we're going to be meeting in DC on the 30th and 31st, which is Wednesday and Thursday next week. In a lobby day, we're going to be meeting at there's a church called Pilgrimage Church in the center of the capital, around the capital rather. We're going to meet there together. We're going to listen to an expert that works in Congress who's going to explain to us how things happen and how they happen. We're going to be divided into groups. Each group is going to go to a particular part of the Congress, the capital, because it's very big. You cannot run around the whole time to attend to everybody. So one group will go one section, another group will go one section. We are already getting into the calendars of the Congress people and the senators, so that when we go there, it's not just you don't just randomly pop into a congressperson's office or a senator. You have to be on their calendar, on their schedule. You come in, you explain the things to them, you clarify what your problem is, and as constituents, they are supposed to listen to you, and they don't want to put their name in a document that has wrong information on it, nor do they want to ignore a document that matters to you. So this is what we're trying to do, to make sure that the entire Congress, both Senate and the House, would have had a position against our Cameroon in this context. You have to remember our eye in all of this is the money pipe. France can send troops to Cameroon, but France cannot pay Cameroon bills. More than 60% of all Cameroon annual budget, we're not talking about long-term, annual budget comes from the United States directly or indirectly, either through the IMF or World Bank. The highest stockholder of the IMF and World Bank is the United States taxpayer. So if we're able to get the US to give sanctions against Cameroon to step on the money pipe, then what automatically happens is that the IMF and World Bank will also stop. Right now, the IMF and I think the World Bank also promised Cameroon some money last time. They have not let that money go, right? Cameroon used it to propaganda to say, oh, the IMF has promised us some money here. But they have not let that money go because they know that if that money goes, all the people that are involved with evaluating that report will be in problem if all of these bills that are in line, the pipeline, go through. So one of the things that would definitely happen if this bill passed, I'm very sure that the IMF would definitely not give Cameroon that money. Because what that would say is that the United States political machinery is already getting ready to chop off Cameroon completely. And they're going to investigate if any coin goes to Cameroon in the next, in the framework of all what is going on right now. And if you're a staffer at the IMF and World Bank, where the French and the European are dominating the administration, but they don't pay the money dominantly, then their employment is going to be in question. So what we're trying to do here is very, very important that, like Don Pacho was saying, while our brothers and kids and mothers are sacrificing everything on the ground, those of us who are in the diaspora, we have two things to do. Look for the money and resources to give them, but also use the political machinery in the place where we are to step on the money pipe and make it impossible for these people to continue killing our people. Yes, sir.
Yes, I want to highlight that this is a diplomatic action that Cameroon itself have a lot of resources to do it. Cameroon have also hired lobby firms to do this kind of work that you are championing here. But you and other comrades here in the United States are calling on Ambazonians to come as a people and have our own lobby machinery by ourselves for free, basically.
That is correct. So,
please, I will to interrupt a little bit.
Then Comrade will come back to that question.
Yeah. This is something that to me, I don't know if I know what I'm saying. If I am mistaken, I would like to be corrected. I don't know if this is a platform for you to come and advocate for this. Don't you think you should have just pleaded for Ambazonians, Southern Cameroonians in the United States to come out, let's go to the Senate without giving all the details of what we want to, because we are giving the La Republic government and intelligence that they can go in there to block it. Don't you think we should beg our Amazonians in the DC, please come, we have a diplomatic move in the United States, in DC, come out this date, let us go there, and on the scene, you now reveal to them, this is what we have to do. This is what we have to do. These are the people that will go to this.
Comrade Don Pancho, yeah, I think Comrade Eben got your point. But before Comrade Eben reacts to it, I also want to let you or any other person who is also asking that question, Comrade Eben will definitely throw more light on that. I remember that our in the domain of political education and international relations, our people are very, very limited information-wise. Sometimes there are things, believe me, a lot of what has to happen is not all what Comrade Eben is saying. So definitely he's going to throw more light on that. But he's probably giving the declassified version of what is general. That when anybody is going out for a meeting like that, every time you are going to meet a congressperson, it is a lobby. And they already know the implications. Cameroon, they are smarter. They have people who are trained in all of this. They are not telling them anything new. So, but in as much as they know that this is what is going to happen, we trust the integrity of the people of the American government. Cameroon has nothing to offer to the American congressman here. American Congress people owe it to them, and that is the power that Comrade Eben and the group here in the United States are trying to explore. And it is of the interest of Amazonians to get this education, so that just in case Comrade Eben is Comrade Eben goes to Swiss stop like Abdul Karim did and gets arrested, and someone will know exactly why they have to take the next move. So Comrade Eben, I was so eager to say something before you go.
Thank you very much. So Brother Pacho, this is a part of Talk and Fight 2. I know you understand it when you think about it a little bit.
Yes.
So this is what's happening. There are meetings that are happening in private that needs to happen that we don't announce. They are supposed to happen the way they're happening. But public lobbying, basically what we're doing is we're doing what Cameroon cannot do. You understand? Cameroon pay lobbyists. You know what the lobbyists do? The lobbyists try to do exactly what we're doing. So what the lobbyists do is the lobbyists have in the United States, there are about 12,000 people working for lobbyists. They are paid people. Most of them are retired politicians. What they would do is they would organize their own lobby day like me and you are talking, just they wouldn't announce it on TV. But what they would do is they would go into the office of Congress people and say, Cameroon have been trying. They were bad before, but they are trying. They are not perfect. But if you cut the money, everything will just fall apart and all the people, including Ambazonians, will suffer. That's what we are doing here by exposing and explaining to our people what is the public part of this kind of lobbying, is so that our people understand what it is, how and why it is necessary for somebody to pay their flight from Texas to come to DC. And this is important because this part of it, this public part of it, is going to continue so that we can mobilize not just the people that are active, but people who did not understand the role that all of this plays. So I understand there's backdoor meetings happening, which I cannot explain why they would happen because we're in a public space, but there are certain circumstances that people are having backdoor meetings. The same way the Cameroon government is trying to, go to certain hotels to stay because they're hoping that would signal to somebody that they are giving them money, but that has not worked up to now. So, Don Pacho, technically, I understand the desire for secrecy, but there's also a certain part of public relations that is public. You do it in the public. Also, what we are also communicating is that we know these games, okay? And I can tell you, my brother, I've been working on this for a while. I know a lot of our African community in the United States struggle with this. That we don't understand how these things work, and so not just us, but other people are struggling. So it's a part of it for our public to understand. It's a part of it. It's a part of that relationship for our public to understand, because technically what is happening is that since we started working on this project, we've had a lot of people in states around the country that did not know me personally. They didn't know any of these people, but they have been able to get involved because someone took time to explain to them what it is, how it happens, and all of that. And there's no guarantee that the people do not have somebody at home who is from Cameroon, who works for the Cameroon government. But there's also another thing that's also happening, is that in our community, there's a certain conversation going on about the secrecy of diplomacy, and that is false. All right? Much of diplomacy is public games. There are private conversations happening, but much of diplomacy is public games that involve public processes. And what we are trying to communicate with this is the inevitability of what is happening. If I were a Cameroon politician and I was able to hear and understand that these stupid people that we've been trying to kill are going to go to Congress and Senate, the best thing for their case is to reduce the killing of our people. But that will not stop us from going to Congress. But what that will do is that will mean less of our people will be dead. Now, if they decide that that doesn't matter to them, that gives us even more hardcore evidence. It's called giving them the choice between suicide or drinking the poison, right? Either drinking the poison or hanging. They have to choose. There's no better option. And this is very important, the general education for our public, because this is supposed to happen in the UK. It's not yet happening. There is something in the UK called the early morning resolution. When one was put, there's only one that has in the record that has been put in our case. When that was put, we tried to call people in the UK on the phone, say, you need to go, you need to go. People never followed up with their parliamentarians. We have Ambazonians that spend an average of more than 800 hours a day on the internet, right?
Yes.
And this is good to the extent that it's educating and doing all kinds of things. But if you put just half of that, 1/4 of that time, responding to your senator or to your congressperson or to your parliamentarian, I know people who wrote to their parliamentarian every day for almost 1 year. And the parliamentarian was like, okay, this is enough. And very soon the guy is on TV as the famous one letter a day activist, and the politics changed. Even the appetite politics in this country did not just go smoothly. So this is part of educating our community, is a very important part. It does not undermine what we're trying to do. We get on the calendar schedule. There's no way for Cameroon to stop us from getting in the schedule. We show up. There's no way for Cameroon to stop us from showing up. We meet the congressman. There's no way for Cameroon. If Cameroon schedules the same day like us, they will tell them that, sorry, there's somebody on the agenda for this time. Okay. And if the Cameroonians show up to schedule after we've come to get the congressperson to not sign up for the resolution, the congressperson has to ask whether it's the people who are going to vote or it is the lobbyists who came to the office which is going to vote for them. What we are doing, we're offering the congressperson a choice between choosing getting back re-elected or not. Because it's not just Ambazonians who are doing this. We have our neighbors, our friends, our community that is getting involved in this thing. So this is very important. Don Pastor, I'm just trying to say the public aspect of it is important. There is, as we called for, a prudence and there's stuff happening in the background. And that we're also keeping under the wraps, as of course we should, for the importance of the fact that the people who are doing work in the background, Cameroon is paying the 4 biggest lobbying companies in the world. Squire Patton and Box, Mercury LLC is the biggest media lobby company. If you do a crime, in the United States, we are a big politician and commit a crime, and you want your image to be clean, you go to Mercury LLC. You want to lobby to pass a bill, Saudi Arabia, all of them pay Squire Patton and Box. Cameroon is paying Squire Patton and Box, Mercury LLC, Save the Christians, and now Axiom. But those organizations were not able to stop the bill from passing that already passed in Congress. Neither were they able to stop us from changing it. But we know that they played a role in putting the text in there that, we are also, Ambazonians have also killed women and children. But the Congress people had to decide between the lobbyists and the activists in the street, which side to take. And they took our side and cleaned that up. Yes. So this is very important, especially we have a lot of brothers and sisters in the United States who they just don't care because they feel powerless and helpless and they feel like there's nothing they can do. There is a lot of stuff we can do, especially those of us in the diaspora.
Comrade Eben, for bills get sponsored. So who is the lead senator that is sponsoring this bill, or is there a co-sponsor? Which bill is this, and what is it titled, or anything like that?
Thank you very much. So this is Senate Resolution 292. It was submitted by Senator Cardin from Maryland. And we have to be very lucky because the problem is not for somebody to submit a bill. The problem is for the bill to pass. Absolutely. But when somebody steps up and submit the bill, that's a big deal because no matter how many people you have to support your bill, if somebody does not submit it, you're not going to get support for the bill.
You're not going to get it.
And so every time somebody submits a bill for you, you have to take that opportunity. You have to consider it an opportunity, and you have to take the opportunity to make sure the bill passes. So it was submitted by Senator Cardin, and it was co-sponsored by about 8 different senators. I don't have the names in front of me. Durbin was one of them. But since we started preparing this campaign that we are going to do next week, we started preparing it almost a month ago, the public part of it. Last week, we also got one senator, Senator Casey, to already sign up. He signed up because of the campaign that we're preparing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good job.
So Casey already signed up, which is a big deal because he signed up to sponsor the bill, to co-sponsor the bill. So we're hoping that by the time we get to this day and come back, we must have had more names on the sign-up co-sponsoring, and that we can get the bill out of committee to the floor and get it voted for and becomes law. That way, we are sure that we put the groundwork to step on the pipeline for Cameroon to get money. And we are sure that Pobia does not care how many of our people die or how many of his soldiers die, but we know that he worries about the money. We know
that. Comrade Eben, for the sake of time also, I want us to rush a little bit, but I still want every facts to come out. What call are you making to the Ambazonian people? For fellow Ambazonians, like you've all heard, you've seen how the mobilization behind the 358 worked to change something in our favor. This is another opportunity. Ambazonians from all the 50 states here in the United States are called upon to participate. What is the mobilization level so far, and what is your call to the Ambazonian people in the United States?
Thank you very much. So this far, we have about 24 representatives in 24 states directly. I mean, for a bill to pass Congress, you don't need that many. So we have Ambazonians who are mobilizing their communities in 24 states to receive communication with their Senate, with their congressional delegation. That means there are 2 senators and their Congress people. The call is that we would like to have a 56-state strategy, which is kind of a way to guarantee that the bill already passes. So we still need people in about New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Alaska. There are quite a couple of states that anybody. It's not bad to have many people from one state signing up. So we just need people to be able to send us their names so that we can contact them, and their email or their phone number so that we can contact them and get the information that we need so that they can be the people who receive communication from their state delegations, because it works sometimes that senators from different states can receive information from people from different states, but that's not the norm. The norm is that the senators from Minnesota will receive information from Ambazonians in Minnesota, and so on and so forth. So we still need more people to volunteer. So there's that first part. We need people to accept these packages of replies for our request for appointment. Then the second part is that we need people to show up in Washington, D.C. on that day. That is on Wednesday, which is Wednesday next week, the 30th of December, the 30th of October, and Thursday, which is the 31st. When people show up in Washington, D.C., the place where we'll be meeting is called the Pilgrimage Church. It is on 2201 in Washington, D.C. It's on the flyer that was put up. The address is there.
Can the studio put up that flyer one more time, as Comrade Eben is saying? Even just put it on the side screen for those who want to follow.
Yeah. So we would meet in that place from 8:30. Thank you very much, sir. We'll meet from 8:30 to 10:30. During that first part of the meeting, that's where we're going to get an expert who's going to come in to teach us, to explain to everybody how the day is going to work, why, and what are the implications of what we're going to do. And then the group will be divided into different delegations, and each delegation is going to carry what we call a delegation file that will have information inside that they will use for their lobbying. So it will be very important that people show up for this event from across the country on Wednesday, the 30th of October, and on Thursday, the 31st. And we are meeting in Pilgrimage, but if you're coming from out of town, we have a couple of Ambazonians that have already offered their houses to host people. We have about four Ambazonians from different communities in Washington, D.C., who are ready to host people in their houses. You can stay in their house for the time, for the 2 days or 3 days if you come one day before, or you want to stay maybe a day after, or 4 days, during which this whole process is happening. So people just need to take contact with us. On the flyer, we have the address, which is info@globalinitiative3c.org. There's a phone number there, which is 571-732-2212. And again, they can also call SCBC. SCBC has direct contact with us. If you have any of the numbers in SCBC or their email, if you reach out to them, the information will get to us. We do need a lot of people to be in Washington that day. The most important part of the lobby day is the visual. When you walk into a congressperson's office, based on the appointment you have, they should be able to see that there's a big delegation present, right? It's true that only 4 people would get into most of the offices, or 5 people to most of the offices, but once they understand, the rest of the people will sit in the conference room, and most of the time the senator would ask everybody to come in, and they will ask for your questions and answers after they have addressed the core issues that are needed, which is basically changing the bill and also co-sponsoring the bill. So we really, really, really need, this is really very important for us as Ambazonians, because we do not know after this bill, if this bill does not pass, we don't know what will happen next. We don't know when we'll have another senator that would volunteer their energy and their resources to submit a bill for us so that we can get a Senate bill about our struggle passed. And it's going to be very hard for us to get the U.S. federal government to take action with that congressional backing. And congressional backing is bills. So that way, in December, the United States is going to be the head of the Security Council. In December, we will be asking the United States to mandate a fact-finding mission against Cameroon's witches. When we do that, when we already have a Senate and a congressional bill, there's no argument. But if you try to tell the Ambassador Kelly Craft that, you need to do this, she's going to say, well, it's true, the Congress has done something, but maybe Senate is still planning to do something. That would underplay our advantage. But if this bill passes, we're going to get 2 bills behind our back when we're getting the UN representative Kelly Craft to push that Cameroon get consequences for these actions, not just by promises, but by mandating a fact-finding mission, which we know in every place where it has been mandated, it has forced the killing to stop. Because the Cameroon government cannot be able to go into Bamenda to kill people if there are UN staff on the ground, not someone from the office of the Secretary General. That's a different thing. A mandated fact-finding mission is not tied to the Secretary General's office. They report to the council directly. And we know in Myanmar, when a fact-finding commission was mandated, the killing stopped. Even in Burundi, when the fact-finding mission was mandated, everything went down. So we're trying to stop the killing of our people, or at least to give ourselves as a community a heads up or an edge in this struggle that we're trying to free ourselves.
Thank you very much, Comrade Eben. Fellow Ambazonians in the United States particularly, this is another wake-up call for all of us here in the United States to mobilize once again and get this job done. While our comrades on the ground are doing the hard part, this is the least we can do. Mobilize ourselves, just sacrifice